Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of A Healthy Spirit. You, my friends, are in for a treat. My name is Michelle Burnt, and as always, I'm your host. And today we have Jim Miles with us, who played, and I saw it in production, John the Beloved in The Thorn. And my friends, if you have not seen The Thorn, you are missing out. John made the show. Although I should call him Jim in real life, but John the Beloved made the show, and we're going to dive into what is the thorn today and just talk about the love of Christ. So, Jim, welcome, my friend.
Thanks, Michelle. It's great to see you. Greetings from Austin, Texas.
Yeah, you're only a couple hours down the road. We have to meet for coffee sometime.
Let's do it. You don't have to twist my arm for a cup of coffee.
I love it. Well, let's dive in. I'm so excited for our listeners to hear about this. Some may be familiar and some may be going, what on earth is this? So please tell us about the Thorn. How was it created and how did the production come about?
That's so great. So the whole story begins with my dear friend, John Bolin, and his lovely wife, Sarah. They are very wonderful friends of mine today. And in 1997, when I am still, I guess I'm in Charleston, South Carolina at that time, they are at a church called New Life Church in Colorado Springs. John is a youth pastor there, and a great one. His flock is growing there in this non-denominational church. And one day he is closing down his youth group, his youth ministry. And he's sitting on stage, and there's a girl crying on the stage. Now, this is John Bolin's story. And if you hear John Bolin tell the story, it's like waterworks. Okay, it's an amazing story. One of those stories that he would admit God was in this conversation. Well, this poor girl's crying, and she's got cuts all up. She's been cutting on her arms, all up and down her arms. And he sits with her and he says, you don't have to do that because Jesus has already done that for you. He's taken these scars. And right then he thought, what if I could show this story? What if we could show in a theatrical, crazy way the price that Jesus paid for us? And as a result, the love that God has for us to give his son to pay this price and to let this girl know she's loved. Yes. You with me so far? So yes. Literally the next weekend, they put together this show. And John says that all the good names for a passion play had already been taken, like the hammer and the cross and everything. So he shows, what about the thorn? What about the thorns on the
brilliant
crown of thorn? So he grabs the thorn, and they have this show, and they call it the Thorn. And I mean, he says the first performance in his admission was terrible. It was terrible, but the story was told in a unique way. And I think that Jesus, his resurrection was from underneath a grand piano. They pulled out all the stops they could, and the whole idea was to show this supernatural conflict that's happening. Because what was going on with that little girl, John says, was it's supernatural. She doesn't really know why she's cutting herself, but we know that there's a battle for the hearts and minds of youth. And I know that better than ever now with my own children. So the Thorn depicts just that, and they did it. And you know what? They filled that little auditorium, and the senior pastor saw it, and his name was Ted Haggard, and at the time at New Life, and he said, what if we did this in the main auditorium? And within, 2, 3, 4 years, there were 40, 50,000 people seeing the show every year, lining up in the parking lot. And the Thorn was born.
Gosh. Crazy. And what year did it start? How many years has it been going?
That's 97. And so a total of 25 years, maybe more.
Wow.
I've been with it for 17 years, and that would have been about 10 years before I was there. So
amazing. Just think of all, and some of the stories you'll never know or hear, right? But think of all the lives and the stories that have been beneficial and affected by the Thorn, right? I mean, people going home and finding Christ. Think of the people that have been saved by the Thorn. Oh, it warms my heart. I love it. So you guys just finished a 10-city tour last month. I cannot wait to hear some of the highlights, or maybe do you have a fondest memory you can share with us?
For sure. Yeah, Michelle, you're right. It was 7.5 weeks total. We were in 10 cities, starting in Loveland, Colorado, and then finishing in Miami on Easter. And wow, is all I can say. So we did not know what to expect when we started. We had never taken the Thorn to the town square before. It had always been in churches, and that has its place. And I understand. And it felt right.
Yeah.
So a huge crowd for us would be 800 people. Oh my word, that would be crazy. And we do, whatever runs we could and whatever else. But John felt strongly, and I felt the same thing, that what if we just bring the Thorn to the town square, really brought it to performing arts centers. And I mean, no safety net, downtown Dallas, downtown Houston, Miami, Tampa. What does that look like? It's a scary
Yeah.
thought. How are people going to react? We had no idea, none. So when the tour started, to answer your question, 23 shows, about 43 to 45,000 people ended up coming to see the Thorn. And that's just the live show. We also released you'll probably talk about the film later, but that was released on March 6th and 7th. So it was simultaneous so think of that synergy. So we've got the live show going, and right before we go to Dallas, the movie drops. And that was really the energy you were feeling. You were at the show in Dallas, I believe. So that was that combination of a buzz being out there. The film was fairly well received. And so people were coming. And I guess your question was, what was it like? It was surreal. It so far exceeded our expectations that there's no doubt it was orchestrated and managed and promoted by God. No doubt.
Oh, now during that 7.5 weeks, were you away from home, or did you get to go home in between?
Good question. So luckily, there were a lot of shows in Texas, and I live in Austin. So I got to see my family first of all in Dallas, right? And then we had a little short week off where I was home for a few days before we went on to San Antonio and then Houston.
Wow, amazing. So I did my research because I was curious, right? There's so many, like The Chosen right now, love that show. The Thorn, so The Passion of Christ, some really good productions out there. And I'm always curious how they get rated, because it's going to be different ratings. Are you aware, Jim, that Rotten Tomatoes gave The Thorn 94%?
Whoa.
Yeah. It's you should be so proud. And they're a hard critic, but I'm curious, do reviews make you nervous? Do you guys get feedback? Like, what is that like for an actor?
Oh, that's awesome. Well, John knows me well enough not to share reviews with me at all because, I mean, it is very personal, very vulnerable. You're up on stage and you're pouring your heart out, but it's kind of a two-edged sword. Like in my tour company, reviews, yeah, I feel them, and that's like almost more personal. When I'm speaking for the Thorn, I'm more, and I don't want this to sound harsh or unloving, but I'm unapologetic about the gospel of Jesus Christ. So when I tell that story and people don't like it, it's almost like, wow, it's working. I feel like if we're not stirring it up, if it's not objectionable to people, are we really bringing the truth that God claims? And it is a truth that the world is going to find hard to digest. So short answer to your question, nervous? Yeah, I suppose. I didn't really look. I was aware that the film was being well received. Just because you just sort of feel it. And when I saw it, I was proud of it. I was proud of the work because biggest fear of going into that film for me, Michelle, was like, we had filmed the Thorn. Is it okay to talk about this now?
Yes.
Okay. So when we first filmed it, it was a couple of years ago in Denver, and we thought it'll be like Hamilton. We'll film the Thorn. We'll have a big shoot, and we had some of the same people that were with The Chosen shoot it. Looked great. And then we had our close-ups. It was like 3 days of shooting, long days. But the one part that didn't translate was the narration. Interesting. And I was John the Beloved. Because there is this, you felt that connection in the seat, in real time, in live theater. And it's powerful, right? It's special. It's a special connection.
John, it's like well, I keep calling you John the Beloved, but it's Jim. Jim, it's like John took us back in time. Like I was transported back in time in the theater, and it was amazing. I was so connected to you. It was like I was flipping a page in a book.
Oh, it's awesome. So that's what we needed and was lacking in the film when we watched it. So
Mm,
John Bolin and my dear friend Andrew Harmon said, "What if we rewrote the John parts in? But we'll go to LA, we'll shoot him in studio, and we'll create this relationship between this young boy. His name is Asher in the film,
right.
and Asher's also on Patmos. Only he's a slave boy, and of course John is there in exile, the last living disciple of Jesus Christ. So this relationship begins with Asher sneaking into John's cave, as you saw in the film, and under the pretext of stealing food. But really, we learn that Asher has heard rumors of this man, John, who cannot be killed, and this man, Jesus, who by this time was larger than life, a legend, everything else. So this relationship develops, and we shot that to show a more, and gosh, it worked. This relationship grows between this old man and Asher. But my fear was, is this, my fear was, how is this going to really look on film? Is it going to be a
Yeah.
creepy old guy in a cave with a boy? I mean, or like, is it going to look like a troll? Like, I didn't know, like, you don't know how it's going to come across, but it
Yeah.
was well written. Andrew did a great job of writing that script, and it worked. And so all the narration parts that you see live with the Thorn are now in this cave setting, and it goes
Yeah.
back and forth between the live drama. Anyway, long story short, I'm glad that people enjoyed it, and the film is doing really well, better now than it did in theaters. Now that it's released, yeah.
It's so brilliant, just the concept of it, because there's nothing better than the Bible, and we all need to pick it up, open it, and turn its pages more often than we do, right?
Mhm.
And I will take part in that. I need to make more time, but there's something about taking the story from the pages and making it come to life. It seems more realistic and to buy into it. So it takes the Bible to a whole nother level. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Love it, love
Awesome.
it. Okay, so we've already talked about you played John the Beloved in the show.
Mhm.
I want to know, when you first read the script, or did you write the script? What went through your mind? Did you think, I don't know if I can play that part, or oh, I must have this part? Like, what were you thinking?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I did not write the script. Remember that John Bolin was the first John the Beloved. So his thumbprint was on the script, and he helped. And my friend Rob Stennett, who's a fantastic writer here in Austin, he's a creative in Austin, and he helped write it as well. I have added over the years jokes. So God is this great director, and he I truly believe I was created to tell this story. And I do other characters than John the Beloved, but I get to tell God's story. And you have to it's a very unique acting role, because like John Bolin did when he started the Thorn for all those years in New Life, it is humorous. So you're a part comedian, you're part pastor, you're part actor, you're part narrator. It's
Mm,
all these different things that come together. And when I first looked at it, my first thought was, I was a pastor at the time, the creative pastor at a church in Charleston and Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, called Seacoast. And I looked at it and said, there's no way, like we can't, there's no way we can pull this off, and it's not just the narration. It was, you know, all the people that were there, and the martial artists and the aerialists. I think they had live tigers on stage, and there were guys on fire. It was like, what, the pyrotechnics. And but when I broke the script down and really started digging into it, I don't know. I could just kind of feel it, I could see it. And once I understood like this relationship, I was having a conversation with the audience from the perspective, as you mentioned, as the Jesus' favorite disciple. And once I owned that and understood that and was free in that to not carry the burden of the thorn and all the legacy and all of that, but just be real, just be true to conveying this John the Beloved, the revelator, the guy who was not only with Jesus, but saw him, saw the miracles. Once I kind of got my teeth into that, the rest just sort of happened.
gosh. Do you have any techniques or anything weird you do to prepare for a role? Like,
Yeah.
you literally played Christ's best friend. that's an awesome role. I mean, you were his last living disciple. So I mean, what do you do to mentally prepare yourself for that? Because if I was you, I would cry during every show during the crucifixion. I almost lost it myself. So
Mm.
how do you mentally prepare for something like that?
Sure, it's just, you just prepare. I guess you know the script inside and out, which allows you to improv. That stuff doesn't just happen. You need to
Right.
know, the script. I'm a historian. I was trained as a historian. I have a master's degree in Southern history, so I
Wow.
certainly did research the time period and did my best to
Mhm.
understand. And I'm talking. Through the Bible too, what was John's relationship with Jesus and how did that really look? How did the disciples interact? What did they do? How did they do life together? And I'm not saying I'm a method actor, but I am saying the more that you can dive into that stuff, the more it helps you understand the character, John,
Yes.
and his deep, deep love for the master, for Jesus.
Mhm.
And so in preparation, I do, this is surprising a little bit, but it's a very physical role. It doesn't look like it because I'm a 96-year-old man and you're just kind of walking around telling the story.
Right.
But
But you
it's very,
stand the entire time.
and you're hunched over and you're doing all your stuff. But just that, so I do stay fit, I do my best to stay in shape
Yeah.
and I'm mindful of what I'm doing. So like I'm dead serious about this role and honoring God's word. If we speak God's word on stage, it's going to be as close to exact as possible. So there's no shortcuts when it comes to the story. We do have fun and we do laugh, and I believe
Yeah.
Jesus did too, and the disciples did. And if they were brothers, then I know that they had fun with one another. But
Yes.
when it comes to conveying God's word, I'm always very serious about that and practice that hard, and then just let the Holy Spirit take it.
Yeah. And you know what? Kudos to any actor and actress. I don't think a lot of people realize how much work goes into any type of production because I'm sure they think you just got to memorize the script. No, there's so much work that comes into becoming that character and the education piece behind it of who were they? Where did they live? What were their surroundings and circle of friends? So I bet there was a lot of research that you had to do just to prepare for this. So good. Okay, so let's talk about the hardest part of the show for me at least. I mean, Jim, I was telling you that my coworker and I, Madison, and I went to the show and we laughed, we cried,
Mm,
we were just silent, like we couldn't move. We felt probably every emotion
mm,
possible during the show. But the crucifixion, it was hard on me
yeah.
specifically.
Yep.
How did people handle this on stage, and did anyone truly cry for real, like just having to relive that again and again? Talk to me about what the feeling and the vibe was on stage during that specific scene.
Sure, I can give you two examples. The tears did come
Yes.
for the cast and crew, but they came at a very strange place, and maybe you wouldn't expect this. But we prepared for the entire tour in Colorado Springs in a warehouse. So imagine cast and crew from all over the world, not just America, coming
Yeah.
together to tell God's story. All different backgrounds, and some are just sold out to the gospel. As I said, I'm unapologetic about the resurrection,
Yeah.
and I'm all in. Others have known God for weeks, months. So we're all together, and God is weaving this group together. Well, one night we're all in the warehouse. I mean, there's the sound isn't great. The lights aren't. They're the fluorescent lights of the warehouse. I mean, sound is echoing everywhere. Jesus is going across the concrete floor, and then there's no props. And just on this one night in Colorado Springs, I'm telling you. So that's when we cried. We all cried. Um, he showed up, and there was such a weight of the Spirit the Holy Spirit in that warehouse that it was almost like for us, it felt like God was breathing on the show, saying, "I've got you. We've got this, and this is what my presence feels like." So there wasn't a dry eye in that place. I'm talking about the cast, the crew, the people working there that night. just seeing Jesus and really understanding that this wasn't the actor on stage, but he did this for us. And we cried it out that night. And I'm telling you, from the Bolins to me, to every actor, to things just broke that night. And it was beautiful. And this is before the show ever even started. So we got ourselves together and finished that rehearsal. And from the rest of the time, we talked about that and we remembered that. And that's one of the great challenges, I think, at least of my faith, Michelle, is not forgetting what God shows us, right? Like, hold on to those memories and remember the reality of that situation. And so we held that and we talk about it often before we go. So now what you're talking about, I'm thinking, is the live performance with 4,000 people in the seats. And here we are to the, this every light, every movement, every sound has been leading up to this moment. It's all about the cross. And the short answer to your question is there's somebody every night that loses it in the cast and crew. God is always moving, always in personal lives as well, in the cast and crew.
Yeah.
So, I mostly keep it together, to be honest with you, just because my mind is so focused on the next monologue and being sensitive to what's coming up. So, but boy, it can be overwhelming. It can be overwhelming at times, and it hits me at different times throughout the show.
Yeah.
To see Jesus beat, though, and to see, and the music, and just to feel just that tiny bit of what he actually paid for us is just, I can hear, I'll tell you this, when I'm on stage, I can hear people weeping throughout the audience, just the whole, all the way from the back to the front. And that,
Oh, I'm not surprised. I mean,
yeah.
I was probably the one you heard. But I have to share something with you, that the emotions that went through my body, and I'm being very vulnerable, but when I first saw the crucifixion, and for those listening, it is very very vivid. It is very detailed. And I was mad at first because I'm like, why would they show us something like that? Because I wasn't prepared for it. But then after the show, my husband's like, "So are you upset you went to the show?" I'm like, "No, I needed to see that."
Yeah.
So I went from mad what happened to Christ, and mad that people didn't believe in him, even people who said they had believed in him and then were, turned him in, and just the whole story and the details. But then in the end, I'm like, this is exactly what every single person in that auditorium needed to see.
Mm-hmm.
They needed to see the detail. They need to be reminded of that Christ died on the cross for you, and he's endured more than you could ever imagine in your entire life. He's got you. And for me, it was a wake-up call. And I love those. I love those wake-up calls in life, that you're meant to be in that auditorium at that time, at that moment.
Yeah. Truth.
Love
100%.
it. Okay, so I also did my research on you, and is it true you have served as the Thorns narrator for 17 years?
I can hardly believe it. That's true. I
That
know.
is amazing. So I'm curious, over the years, how has this changed your personal relationship with Christ, but also how has the production changed? And I know you kind of talked about that. I mean, I'm assuming the the things you can do on stage technology wise are way different than what you did back in the church, but I cared more so just how have you evolved?
Mm. Well, that's a great question. So, 17 years. So I'm 37 now. So I started when I was 10. No. Um, so it's a great question. When I started the Thorn, I was doing my best just to keep up and do what John did. Like, I'm watching the DVD and I'm like, I got to do this and I got to do this. I got to act like this. I got to say that joke. But as I told you, like, as I got more comfortable with it, and even John was so good about saying, Jim, this is you now. This is you. He passed the baton. And that's just a sign of great leadership, I think. And it really taught me a lesson to say, to be okay to let go. It's just a big deal. And John is one of the best producers I've ever met. He can still get in there and swing the bat if he had to. It, John the Beloved. It's really great to see. But once that happened, I started to grow in the character more and more and more. Humor is very much a part of my life and what my family does and what we do and all my relationships. So that stayed, and I think grew it through the role. And it's just through the years, we've had some just great laughs together with the Thorn. And it's one of the things that helps me. It helped me grow into the character, because if I can make if the audience laughs with John the Beloved during the first half of the show, those first three monologues, there's a certain trust and kinship that grows through laughter, that can grow through almost nothing else. Is when people
Yeah.
laugh together. It's beautiful, and it knits hearts together, and it also builds trust. So with the trust, then you're prepared for what happens in the second part of the show. And so that helped me. I've done different characters throughout the Thorn, so that's helped keep it fresh. We do John the Beloved, and I think we're going to stick with that for a while on our national tour. But I also
Yes.
perform as
Don't you change.
ah.
You made the show. If you change, I know where you live.
Okay, hey, you got it. We have done Doubting Thomas, which is a really amazing role coming from a whole different perspective of the doubter, and he's got his own shtick and a different accent, and I love doing that. Simon Peter is a powerful script. Another one written by my buddy Rob Stennett, and so those are really two other ones. We tried Mary Magdalene one year, wasn't me. We tried, and she was a
Wow.
fine actress, but and so we've got different things. But for 17 years, I'll just tell you that I can't believe it. It's been like that. It's just gotten like every year. It's like I'm ready. Let's go. Let's do it again.
And you're going to be starting the next tour again in the fall?
Yep, we've got another tour starting in early September. We're going to begin right now. It looks like Nashville will be our first performance at Belmont University there, and then we're going to go. I can't even tell you all the places, but I promise you, it's in the Northeast, and New York will be in there, and New Jersey, and Boston, and other places, and we're going to end, I think, in Atlanta
Wow.
in sometime in maybe November, early November.
Have they announced when tickets go on sale?
That's a great question. Go to thethorn.com and it'll be posted soon. I think there's still, you know how it is. You got to get, since we were so well received in this first tour, the performing arts community around America is a pretty small family, really. And people talk and they say, y'all, this group came in and on a Tuesday night and sold out Fair Park Tuesday and Wednesday
Literally.
night. Literally sold it out. You saw it. And
Yeah.
so and they're like, they did what? Like they're almost no people weren't prepared for what God did as we move forward up against. And again, I boast in the cross, but we were, people who sold tickets said it surpassed Hamilton, any other place at any other show that had been there, the excitement and the energy. So my
Yeah.
point is, it was easier to book this second show, and we'll see what happens up north. Who knows? You're always like, and then the
Yeah.
other big question and a prayer for anyone who's watching is, how does the Thorn sell outside of Easter? We don't know. We're about to find out.
Yeah. I was thinking last night when I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for this podcast today." And I thought of, just this last tour, you mentioned over 45,000 people, but then also over the past 25 years. But then I thought, but what about on stage? Just like
Mhm.
when I interviewed The Chosen, Eden from The Chosen, she talked about how there were firm believers on the show that were born
Mhm.
believers, and there's people who came just as an actor and actress and aren't believers, but converted to believing by the end of the film production. And
Mm.
so I think of all the actors and actresses on stage, how this is changing them for the better too, not just the audience.
Truth, and their family members. A lot of times these are dancers that went to New York to get their break, or they thought they would put themselves in as a Christian on Backstage or some Christian website because they wanted to work. And they felt a warm spot toward God, but didn't have any idea what they were getting
Yeah.
themselves into. And by the end, we're baptizing them. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. You selling out theaters is not surprising because you guys put on a heck of a show, but that's God. That is how he works his magic. He always shows up when you least expect it. He always over delivers. He always loves everyone in the audience, whether they're believers or not. I mean, when you think about it, it's amazing, but then it's expected because it's God.
Yeah,
And I love that. It's just another reminder that he's right there and he wants to show you.
indeed.
So, if people missed The Thorn,
Yeah.
where do they go? What can they do to still watch it with their families at home?
Yes. Well, you can buy the DVD. We have it for sale. It has been digitally mastered. However that is. They've got it for
Yes.
sale. Yeah, Blu-ray, and thethorn.com is the place where you can buy it. And just go there and you can buy 1 or 3 or 5 and spread and send them out as gifts. And I can honestly say it's a great film. It truly is. It worked.
Yes.
Somehow it worked. This handoff, this relationship, and you get to see John the Beloved in a so much more a tender way. He's communicating instead of to thousands and thousands. He's communicating to this young boy Asher, and it just really worked.
So as we start to wrap up, I'm very curious. You are a husband, a father of 4 kids.
Yeah.
You are an amazing, well-known nationwide storyteller. What do you do when you're not on stage? What are your hobbies? What do you do for a career? Tell us.
So my career is I own a walking tour company right here in downtown Austin, Texas. So what I do is
Oh
I
my
tell
goodness.
stories of this great city of Austin, Texas. And I've got 6 tour guides that work for me, and people just make reservations to my website. And I've taken this little tiny hobby really, and it's become, God is good. So that's what we do. I also have a son who's 17, and we just do crazy stuff that guys do together. We work out and we ride scooters and motorcycles and all that good stuff. It keeps me busy.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm close to you, so I'm coming down for a tour first of all.
Let's go. Anytime.
My husband said you should totally ask him when you go to coffee to come in character. The beard, the makeup, the cane, all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a trip for sure. If we had the makeup artist that did the film, you wouldn't know the difference. She was so good because film is so much different than theater, than stage, that it looked, I thought, who is this guy? And it was unbelievable. So, yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy day to meet with us. Again, for our listeners, you have got to check out thethorn.com, get their tickets for their fall tour, but don't wait till then. What a great show to watch with your family. My kids weren't with me. It was just my husband and I, and then we went with Madison and her husband. And I kept thinking the whole time, my kids have to see this.
I agree.
So it's
Yep.
just a great show with anyone. Great gifts to buy the DVDs for Christmas, which gosh, will be here before we know it. And I just can't thank you enough. And I truly mean that you made the show. You really, really did. You brought it to life.
Mm.
The theatrics and the music and the sound and the lights were amazing, but you brought the words from the Bible to life.
Mm.
And so I have no doubt that God was speaking through you.
Well, thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. It's been just an honor to be with you today. And God is in the business of glorifying his son. And if whenever we do that fearlessly, it will be well received.
Mm. So, Jim, all of our podcast guests always share a Bible verse at the end that they think could just really spread some love and positivity. Do you have one you would love to share with us?
Galatians 2:20, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. That verse continues to transform my life, and it reminds me that it is not my strength, it's his. That what happened on the cross is real, and it's finished, and it's done, and it's no longer up to me.
Mm. So I want to repeat something he just said, and I want you guys to listen. God lives within you. It doesn't matter where you've come from, what you've done, or where you're headed. He's in you right now. He wants to be there for you. He wants to pray for you. He wants to love on you. Just let him.
Mm.
Open the floodgates, let him in and receive him, and you will forever be transformed and your heart fulfilled. It is that easy. Jim, I adore you. I just may come to your show again, bring my toot horn and Jim, it's me. And you'll think, who is that crazy lady in the front row?
Do it. Let's do it.
Well, thank you so much. You're just a blessing. We appreciate you being on the show. And again, everyone, please check out thethorn.com. Till next time, God bless.
Bye. Thanks.